We're going to talk about a composer today, and you might not know his name, but I guarantee you've heard his music. In fact, you could say he's the guy who built the very house that all of classical music still lives in today.
I mean, of course you do, right? They are the titans, the absolute rock stars of their time. Their names are basically just shorthand for the word genius.
But what if I told you that behind both of those giants, there was another master, a figure that they both admired, that they both learned from? He wasn't just around at the same time. He was the guy who literally wrote the playbook. And that man's name was Franz Joseph Haydn. You know, his colleagues and friends had this nickname for him. They called him Papa Haydn. And it wasn't because he was old, not at all. It was because he was the father of the musical forms that everyone was using.
The sheer scale of his influence is it's staggering. Think about it. He didn't just write a few symphonies. He wrote over 100 of them, completely changing what a symphony even was. And then he did the exact same thing for the string quartet, turning it from a solo act into this incredible, balanced conversation.
So how on earth did one person manage to do all of this? Well, the secret to his musical revolution, it wasn't found in the bustling capitals of Europe. No, it was actually found in a very strange and profound kind of isolation. Get this, for nearly 30 years, 3 whole decades, Haydn's world was the court of a single, incredibly rich family. So, unlike a freelancer like Mozart, who was always hustling for the next gig, Haydn was a full-time, salaried employee. His official title was Kapellmeister. Now that sounds pretty fancy, and it was a high-status job, but it essentially meant he was an employee. His job was to compose whatever the prince wanted, whenever he wanted it. He had a fantastic orchestra at his command, but for the most part, his audience was just one person. And this is the key to everything. His isolation out at this remote palace became his creative laboratory. He wasn't chasing trends, he had no rivals to copy, and as he put it himself, he was forced to become original. I mean, how incredible is that? His isolation became his greatest strength.
So what does being forced to be original actually lead to? Well, for starters, it led him to completely reinventing one of the most important forms in all of music, the symphony.
You see, before Haydn, the symphony was, well, it was basically fancy background music. Seriously, it was the kind of thing you'd put on while you ate dinner or played cards. But Haydn took that and gave it weight, gave it drama, a real story. He turned it from wallpaper music into the main event.
And you can really see this change when he took his famous trips to London later in life. He's standing in these massive public concert halls, not playing for a prince at dinner, but for a huge, paying audience that came just to hear his music. The symphony was now the star of the show. And to do that, he created a structure, a blueprint that audiences could follow. This 4-movement plan, a fast opening, a slow middle, a dance, and a fast finale, it became the gold standard. A structure so powerful, its DNA is still in music all around us, from concert halls to the movie scores you heard last week.
And don't ever think that structure means boring. Haydn was a total prankster. He loved to play with the audience's expectations. The best example is his Surprise Symphony. It's got this lovely, quiet, gentle melody going, and then bam! An explosion of sound out of nowhere. It's basically a musical jump scare designed to wake up anybody nodding off in the audience.
Okay, so that was his first massive contribution. His second was just as profound, but this time on a much more intimate scale. He took the string quartet and, well, he taught it how to talk.
See, before Haydn, a string quartet was basically a violin solo with some backup instruments. The first violin got all the glory. Haydn changed all of that. He made them equals. In his hands, the 4 instruments became true partners in a conversation. The cello isn't just a bass line, it's a character. The viola isn't just filler, it has its own witty opinions. It was pure drama on a tiny stage.
And you know who recognized the genius in this? His friend, Mozart. This quote just says it all. Mozart believed Haydn was the only composer who could make him laugh and move him to tears, sometimes in the same piece of music. In fact, Mozart was so in awe, he dedicated an entire famous set of his own quartets to Haydn. That is some serious respect.
And that really brings us to his final and maybe his most important role. He wasn't just an innovator, he was the foundational pillar for the entire classical era of music.
Just take a look at this timeline. Haydn's incredibly long life forms this perfect bridge. He's there at the end of the old Baroque style of Bach, and he lives all the way into the dawn of the Romantic era with Beethoven.
He was the elder statesman who personally connected these two musical giants. And these connections were direct and personal. He and Mozart were great friends who truly admired one another's work. And then a young, fiery Ludwig van Beethoven actually took lessons from Haydn, learning the rules of composition from the very man who perfected them.
So, the next time you're in a concert hall or you hear a piece of classical music swell up in a movie, listen for that structure. Listen for that witty turn of phrase, that conversation between instruments. Because chances are, what you're really hearing is the echo of Papa Haydn, the humble genius who became a master, and the man who taught an entire generation how to compose and taught the rest of us how to listen.